Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the VR Education Holdings PLC full year results investor presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. It could be submitted at any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. I'd also like to remind you this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to David Whelan, CEO, Seamus Lowersey, CFO of VR Education Holdings.
Hello everybody, my name is David Whelan. I'm the CEO of VR Education Holdings, the team behind the Engage platform, and I'm joined here today by Seamus.
Hi everyone.
So today we're actually doing something a little bit different. We're presenting inside our own Engage platform. So I'm here in a virtual office location and I'm in my own home office. And then Seamus, can you tell the audience where you are?
Yeah, I'm in the Waterford office, just in here on my own, and it seems like I'm right beside Dave.
So what we're going to do, this is obviously our PowerPoint presentation behind us, and we're talking about our final results for last year and also our medium-term outlook. So Seamus, I'm just going to get to the correct slide for you. There you go.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so just want to take you through some of our operational and financial highlights for the year. Operationally, we've seen an acceleration of Engage demand during the year, and with the launch of Engage events post the onset of COVID in March, we've seen continued growth throughout the year. We've also seen a substantial increase in the addressable user base through the launch of Engage Mobile, which supports both Android devices and iOS devices. We signed in excess of 1.8 million euros in Engage deals during the year, and at the end of the year, we had 60 active customers. But possibly the most exciting expansion of the year was that Engage went live to HTC customers in the Greater China region just before the year end. And we expect this to be a very significant player in 2021 onwards. Financially, just some financial highlights. You can see that group revenue grew to 1.42 million, which is up 38% on the prior year. Within that, Engage comprised 40% of total group revenue, a significant increase on the prior year where it was less than 10%. We also saw an increase in Engage user numbers, up 700% year on year. Engage standalone revenue grew 550% and finished the year just shy of 600,000. Group gross margin was 72%, and cash at the end of the year was 2 million euros.
Okay, so what are the commercial use cases for Engage? So we have three main offerings on the platform. So we have our virtual campus, which is an always-on location, and it's used for distance learning. And we have some really top clients using the platform for virtual remote training and remote education. So we have the likes of Stanford University, Oxford University, and Tokyo Global Gateway. So these are very premium names and brands associated with the platform. Then we also have Engage Virtual Office, which is it is an always-on location, kind of a corporate location, which has some offices offset, and it allows employees to meet up with each other no matter where they are in the world, and have company meetings, conferences, and events as well. And some of the people who are using it in this regard are Fidelity Investments, HTC, NVIDIA, McKinsey & Company. And then finally, we also have virtual events. So because of COVID especially, lots of the physical events have been cancelled, and we've been hosting events on a very regular basis inside Engage with some very, again, top tier organizations such as Audi, Yahoo, Vodafone, and European Commission. And we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of these commercial use cases later on in the presentation. Okay,
So just looking at our financial performance in a little bit more detail. In FY20, as already mentioned, we generated 1.4 million in total revenue, which was up 38% on the prior year. Engage grew 550% in a revenue basis and more than 700% on a user basis year on year, and now comprise more than 40% of total group revenues. I think one of the most important points to note, though, and which wasn't in our trading update, is that Engage revenue for the first 7 weeks of 2021 has been 0.3 million, which represents 50% of total Engage revenue for 2020. I think that highlights the growth and the demand for the platform at the moment. Non-engaged revenue, which is primarily our showcase experiences, which would have been a key factor in the past, they're down slightly in the year, but that's due to COVID-19 related museum closures in the United States. But we still closed the year with 75,000 downloads and over 800,000 in revenue in that stream. Our gross profit margin increased by 11% from 61% in 2019 to 72% in 2020. That's primarily due to increased engaged revenue contribution. Our cash balance at the year end was in excess of 2 million, and our monthly cash burn was 250,000 per month at the year end. But during 2021, that has fallen to 150,000 in January and February per month. So just looking at some of the key performance metrics that we measure internally and that we'll be reporting on going forward. Obviously, engaged revenue I've already touched on. It's grown from 92,000 to 599,000 year on year, which is a compound annual growth rate of 550%. More interestingly would be our revenue by type for FY20. You can see that our recurring revenue is 61% of our total revenue. That would be license deals for educational or enterprise customers. We then have 15% in professional services. That's custom work that we would perform for our education or enterprise customers on a one-off basis, so tailoring the platform to their needs or creating one-off piece of training. Then the new revenue stream that came on board this year was the Engage Events piece, and that's generated 24% of our total engaged revenue for the year. Then just looking at our total license numbers, you can see that our total licenses have grown from just under 1,600 at the start in H1 2019 to just shy of 3,000 at the end of 2020, which shows the significant growth that we've had in 2020. That's a compound semi-annual growth rate of 177% over the period. Then if we look at our active customers, and we define an active customer as a customer with greater than 3,000 in cumulative average contract value, so basically excluding any trial customers, you can see that we've grown from 3 in H1 2019 to 23 at the end of H2 2020. And as it stands today, we're in excess of 35 active customers on the platform.
Okay, so what I'm going to show next is a short video presentation of Engage. So hopefully it will enlighten you a bit more on some of the available features and some of the unique capabilities of the platform that really video-based communications just can't do.
We all experience the world in unique ways. Through our senses, we gather information and build cognitive process to understand concepts. This is how we learn. But what if we could push these boundaries past our physical world? What if you could communicate with anyone in the world, yet feel like you were in the same room? If you could meet and learn from teammates globally, sharing media and ideas, or jump into a simulated training.
But the real test is being able to do the right thing in a stressful situation.
To gain a deeper understanding of the task at hand.
And when you're squeezing the trigger to squeeze the bag. You have ventilated the baby, and now it's time to reassess.
Please fasten your seatbelt, sir.
Creating real-world scenarios, improving employee knowledge and skills.
Exactly, plant another tree. And this time we put it up the top.
Imagine if quality education was accessible to all, regardless of geographical location.
Large hazard and increase the risk to these big cities.
What if no field trip is too far or impossible?
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that short presentation. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint now. So just give me a moment to load this. Okay. So in the video, you would have seen some of the use cases. So you've seen it for simulated training and communication. And just to go through these in a little bit more detail, let me open it up here on screen. So I'm actually bringing in these PowerPoints from OneDrive, so directly from a web source. Okay, so as you can see on the screen here, we have virtual campus, virtual office, and virtual events. So With our virtual campus, again, we do have persistent locations. So these are always on locations where students can log in at any stage from anywhere in the world, meet up with other students associated with that online university or that online college. And then they can go and attend either pre-recorded classes or they can attend live classes with lecturers from all over the world. You know, and they seem to really enjoy it a lot more than video-based communication, where they have peer support groups inside and they really feel like they're taking part in a real class, because it really does feel like you're in a real environment. And actually, even though Seamus is probably 100 miles away from me in the real world, I feel like he's only maybe 10 feet away from me here in the virtual world. It's something you don't get on video. Our virtual office is very similar, so you can see it in here. So again, it's a wide open area, and I will be going a little bit more into detail in this later on, where again employees can go meet. They can have those private conversations at say a water cooler as an example, which they've probably been missing using Zoom calls all the time. You can have sales presentations in there as well, and corporate events in there, or training events as well, training simulation. And I think you've seen in the video where we had a guy on an oil rig, that was actually safety training. All of that kind of material can be quite quickly developed inside Engage. And then for virtual events, we were working with some really premium companies in virtual events, where obviously the physical events have been cancelled all through 2020, and they're looking for alternatives. They have been using video communication, but they found that the engagement is very, very poor through video events, large-scale video events, and they're looking for alternatives. And we have special abilities, which I'll go talk about later on in this presentation. So some of the main things from this year as well is we're available on all major platforms, and we just recently released Engage on mobile phones and tablets. The screens here that we're presenting on, actually, these are Chromium-based screens, so anything that runs on Google Chrome will run inside Engage. We can stream in video, as you just saw, and we can stream in 3D video as well. So if you're in VR, that video could look 3D to you, and we can stream in 360 video from any web source. And with the spatial audio, when you're inside Engage, if there were 70 people at this presentation, if somebody is off down the other end of the room, they will sound like they're off down the other end of the room. You know, they'll sound very quiet to us, and people who are closer to you sound closer. You can have these private hallway conversations. You can't do that on video-based medium, where the person who's presenting is the person that everybody can hear. Whereas if I'm sitting in a virtual presentation, I can whisper to the person next to me without disturbing anybody else. And we can also do a lot of customization. So this is one of our meeting room environments, but we have all different environments that can be fully customized and branded for the organization themselves. And I'm going to show you one of those environments later on today. Okay, James, do you want to do this one?
Yeah, so I just want to briefly go through how we get to market with it and generate revenue from the three offerings that we have. So if we look at the top, we have the virtual campus, the virtual office, and the virtual events. And how we get those to market is either through our direct B2B sales organization or indirect through our channel partners. Our B2B sales organization comprises our business developers who are based in America, in the UK, and in Asia. And they've generated the vast majority of our revenue to date. But with the onset of HTC coming on board and us delivering the platform to the Greater China region in the back end of 2020, we expect our channel partners to be a more significant portion of our revenue going forward. We also have other channel partners, which include resellers in South Korea and also in the North American markets. That feeds down into software licenses generated on our side through B2B sales, and also a revenue share coming in from our channel partners. Coupled with our support services and our professional services section, we generate revenue and deliver our product to end user clients, both enterprise and educational.
Okay, so just to go into a little bit more detail about our virtual office, our meeting environments. This is a virtual Menlo Park from Facebook. So Facebook provided us with a digital location, which we imported into Engage. And they use this environment for mini events and meetings. So you can see here, that's a presenter screen. This is a larger area. It's actually based on the real place in Menlo Park. And these buildings around the outset, these have virtual meeting rooms. There's a gallery space down here as well. And again, they use it for Facebook employees logging in all over the world. And they also can invite clients in there as well and talk about Facebook products that are coming up. So it's a really cool environment. And it's, again, it's always on. It's a persistent location. Here for virtual campus or education, so one of the core drivers of Engage early on has been, it was an education and training platform, and that's how it was developed. And we worked a lot with educators, and Stanford University are using the platform for medical training. Here you can see a baby getting a resus. So not only is Engage really useful for just general meetings and live meetings, it's actually very, very useful for simulated training. So you can put in these very detailed simulations where people get a lot of experience where they role play tasks, so they could role play on this virtual baby to resuscitate it very, very easily. And this is something that you can't do easily in the real world, where you'd have to have lots of expensive equipment and a baby analog to do it, where we do it all digitally at a fraction of the cost, and then it can be served out globally in one go. And then virtual events. So as a lot of you might know, HTC came in last year and they invested in the company. They now are a very large shareholder. They have a 20% stake in the business. What happened last year, back in March, is we held the Vive Ecosystem Conference inside Engage, and it was a huge, huge success. So the actual physical conference was supposed to be held inside China, but because of COVID and the spread of COVID inside China, that was obviously cancelled. Normally, HTC would invite a couple of thousand developers to a conference. They would talk about all the hardware that they have coming up, all the software that they're working on, and get the developers excited. And however, this was obviously cancelled, and they came to us a few weeks beforehand and said, "Look, we've been using Engage, and we're very excited with it. Can you guys help?" We helped host the event. It was the first time we hosted a major event inside Engage. We had over 1,000 concurrent users in VR attending from all over the world. A lot of them are actually based in China, and we had over 1.1 million people watching the live stream. Very, very successful event. And as I said, just before the event even finished, I got a call from Alvin Grayland. He's the Chinese president of HTC. I said, "Look, are you guys looking for investment? We're very impressed with the service that you guys have given us and the platform. We'd like to get on board and help you push out the platform in the greater China region." And we signed up, and we signed a commercial deal with HTC last year, and they're starting to roll out Engage services in the greater China region. And they also have a license as well to resell Engage services all over the world. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring you to the Vive Developer Conference in our spatial recording. So it's one of the unique features of Engage, where not only did the event happen live, we actually recorded everything. So we recorded all the people inside, all the audio, we recorded the presentations as well, and you can actually go and physically walk around inside the simulation. So it's not like a recorded video. You can actually sit down and enjoy it from any position, or you can even interact with these spatial recordings as well. So we're just going to take a short journey there, and then we're going to come back to this location. So hello again, welcome to the Vive Ecosystem Conference that was held last March. This is a spatial recording where we recorded everything that happened within the conference. Standing right next to me, this is Alvin Grayland, the president of HTC China. And behind him, we have a presentation, but this is one of the locations that we use for events on a very regular basis. Now, I have this spatial recording paused. I'm going to unpause this, leave it play for maybe about 30 seconds so you can see what the conference was like, and then we're going to zip back into our meeting room environment. So I'm just going to unpause this now, and then I'm going to move out of the way. Okay, Alvin.
So these are pictures that you guys have probably seen way too many of, and you probably hope you never see them again. But what if you could see them in a different way? What if they come out in a 3D way that really lets you understand and appreciate them? But don't worry, guys. These viruses aren't going to hurt you because we prepared. All of you guys have been now issued special protective gear. So, this is a very interesting type of experience that we can have because of platforms like this. And this is actually going to be how the future of conferences are going to be done. So why don't we do a little fun thing? Let's do a quick selfie with your protective gear, these viruses, right now.
Okay, so I've just paused the presentation there. So this is just to give you an example of what a conference was like in VR, where we have all these different elements floating around the place, and then the audience were put into hazmat suits. But we had instances where we had whales actually fly overhead. We had a train come through the screen as well. So it's just to give you a brief example of what a spatial recording is like. So I'm going to meet you back in the conference room. Okay, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that little trip to the Vive ecosystem conference. And again, it's a really kind of strange experience when you attend a live conference and you're being recorded. You can actually stand and look at your own avatar presenting. So it's a pretty cool feature of Engage. So here we can actually see the competitive landscape for Engage. You can see a couple of names listed here. And obviously some of the big ones here, you have Zoom and Microsoft Teams. Now, a lot of places are using Zoom and Microsoft Teams as their preferred online communications platform. And actually, we're presenting this through one of those platforms right now. But you'll also see then we have some virtual reality companies here, VR, AR companies, and Glue and Spatial. So on the product list that you can see here, actually, I'm just going to move out of the way. As you can see here, we're very competitively priced against video-based communications, and we're actually less expensive than some of the VR and AR alternatives as well. We can have over 35 users in a simulation at once, so we can have actually up to 70 people in this particular room, or we have scaling abilities where you can have millions of people attend a virtual conference if need be. A lot of our competitors actually don't have that. We do support a broad range of VR devices, and we will be supporting AR devices in the future when those wearables become available. We also as well have real face avatars. So this is my real face. I really look like this. I'm probably not as skinny because I've made my avatar skinny. I've put on a lot of weight over COVID. And that's really what Seamus looks like as well. So you can upload a photograph into Engage and it will build the avatar. There's no need to be tweaking settings. And spatial audio, which is really key for the collaboration aspect of Engage. So if this room with 20 people in it and some of them are down the back, one can lean over to the other and whisper in their ear without disturbing the person who's giving the presentation. That's something that you just can't do on virtual media. And again, the spatial recording, which is really cool, which what you've just seen with the HTC event, it's one of the killer features on Engage, and it actually makes content creation very easy. And using that as a content creation tool, you can then publish that content on the platform for others to enjoy as well. So we have a lot of capabilities. Some of these platforms have some of the capabilities that we have, but we actually combine them all into one very easy to understand and easy to use package. And we're starting again to get a lot of traction in a lot of areas, not just in education, which is what we used to focus on, but also in corporate training, corporate onboarding, and especially events because of COVID concerns. So just some of the kind of key outlines of what we've seen happen over the past 12 months, and especially over the past 6 months, is that there's a huge demand for the Engage platform in all our use cases. So we're probably seeing like 30% of our demand in education, 30% in corporations and enterprise, and another 30% in event space. You know, so all the areas that we service, they're actually seeing rapid acceleration in demand, and it's working out very, very well for us. There's also a growing demand for a next generation communications platform to address evolving corporate and institutional needs emerging from the limitations of video-based platforms like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, WebEx, etc. So especially in these conferences where you'd have a couple of thousand people log into a video cast, it's not very interactive. You're just watching PowerPoint after PowerPoint or keynote after keynote. There's no real interaction, whereas in a virtual platform like Engage, we have these conference centers where people can go have private hallway conversations, meet up with salespeople. That's why people go to events. That's where a lot of business is done, is those chance meetings with people who are at the event. And that's something that we can provide online that simply a lot of these video communication platforms can't. Also as well, there's billions of dollars of investment coming in from Facebook, Sony, HTC, Qualcomm, NVIDIA, and many others. And very, very soon, Apple will be coming into this space as well. These guys are very heavily invested in making sure that VR and AR, or XR as it's called, is going to be accessed this year, or well, over the next few years. And then we have telecommunications companies, you know, really pushing out 5G at the moment. They really have a vested interest in ensuring that this technology becomes very popular and ubiquitous. Reason being is because on 4G, people are very happy, well, pretty happy with their streaming services, so they can watch YouTube videos or Netflix on their mobile phone using 4G, and they use a certain amount of data. But if VR and AR becomes very successful, the amount of data that's required for simulations, especially if you're simulating on a server somewhere and piping that in, the data consumption is going to increase rapidly. And a lot of these telecommunication companies have spent billions of dollars in getting licenses for 5G services. They really want to upsell customers to 5G and 6G services in the future, where they will really use a lot of data, and they will really make sure that 5G is a worthwhile investment, whereas currently not very many people really need to upgrade to 4G. Also as well, we have a lot of channel partners coming on stream. So HTC obviously are our main channel partner, reselling Engage services in China, and we're expecting big things to happen from H2 this year. Also, we have channel partners in Korea and also a few coming on stream in the US as well. So it's not just us selling directly, because we don't have a huge amount of business developers. We actually have these other companies selling on our behalf, and that's a model that we expect will be very successful for us in the future as we roll out to different territories in the future. Also as well, we're seeing a very, very strong demand in North America and in Asia as well. So we've very few customers currently in Europe. That's something that we are going to rectify this year. But a lot of the adoption is coming from the US and Asia. Again, Korea and Japan would probably be some of the leaders in the region. And then China has just come on stream. We released Engage on Chinese servers just before the end of last year. And again, HTC are just getting up and running, and we're expecting to see big things coming in the middle of the second half of this year. Okay, James, you want to do medium-term outlook?
Yeah, I will, of course. So the group is really, really excited about the future of Engage and where it's going to go. And as we announced in our trading update in January, we're expecting to achieve 10 million euros in Engage revenue with 500 active enterprise customers, which will lead to 100,000 monthly users during the period 2023 to 2025. So how that translates into key performance metrics, we expect to see a growth of Engage revenue, and we expect to deliver annual average compound annual growth rate from Engage in excess of 100% until that 10 million target is reached. We expect it to be high quality, though, recurring Engage revenue to comprise 80% of that figure, with the other 20% comprised of 10% professional services and 10% one-off events. We expect gross margin to be in excess of 80%. We expect that we expect to achieve that level when Engage revenue is between 5 to 10 million. We expect to see a 10% average month-on-month increase in users to reach that 100,000 mark, reflecting a target of 500 active customers. Customer retention rates, we expect, and it's only a management estimate at this stage, to retain at least 80% of our customers. As we've already mentioned, most of our customers came on stream in the second half of 2020, which means renewals haven't become up yet for most of our customers. But those customers that came on stream earlier than that have all renewed. So we're very positive about that figure, and we think it's a prudent figure to be at 80%. And finally, we expect our average contract value to grow to in excess of 20,000 euro. Currently, it stands for 2020 at 14,000 euro, excluding trial customers. And as demand for increased number of licenses grow, we expect that figure to go up. So there's obviously a strong, large global growing market driving the growth in Engage and the growth in VR. So if we see the three markets that we're targeting, you can see global team collaboration software. The market was 10 billion at the end of 2020. Global e-learning was 165 billion, and global virtual events was 94 billion. There's also very strong forecast compound annual growth rate across those three sectors. We consider our initial target addressable market to be up to 10% of those markets, which gives us a range of between 10 to 25 billion of a total addressable market, a very sizable market for us to be addressing. Obviously, the VR market is still quite immature within this. With the availability of hardware accelerating, there's going to be less barriers to adoption. However, Engage development in 2020 sought to overcome this. We're now cross-platform support, desktop, Android, and iOS support. So our addressable market is far in excess of what other standalone, just virtual platforms offer. And we expect 2021 to be another formative year especially within the Engage platform and within with the channel partners with HTC in the Greater China region.
Okay, so if we look at the graph here, this is estimated shipping of headsets for 2019. So a lot of these companies actually don't release numbers on how many units that they ship. But this data is something that I got from Statistica online. Now, in 2020, there was a real big sea change in VR and AR adoption. So Facebook released the Oculus Quest 2 in a big way, and they released it towards the end of last year. And it's estimated that they sold over 1 million Oculus Quest 2 devices alone in the final quarter of 2020. A lot of that actually towards the Christmas period. They were actually held back. Those numbers were held back because unit numbers, they were very hard to actually purchase in shops. They were always sold out, and we're actually seeing that acceleration really grow. And what we've did last year is Engage was released for the first time on the Facebook Oculus store. And in the week that we released Engage on the Oculus Store, we had 15,000 people sign up for accounts on Engage. So there's a huge demand for collaborative and social apps on that platform, and we're still seeing an acceleration of people actually joining. There's other headsets going to be coming out in the market later this year as well. So there's going to be, even though you have HTC, you have Facebook there, you also have PlayStation, but there's going to be other competitors coming into the market quite soon as well. Expect to see some telecoms companies enter this arena as well. And as I said, Apple are fully expected to release some type of wearable VR AR device. We feel it's going to be within the next 12 months. It is very, very soon. Really what's standing to them now is a lot of the research and development has been done. Qualcomm have a reference design chipset that they could use, but the headsets now are becoming really they're not expensive at all. So you can get an Oculus Quest today for $300. It'll soon be $200. And the experience is really, really good. HTC have their own version, which is the Vive Focus, which is really focused on enterprise and education. Really, really good device as well. And I think the experience and the cost really now is coming to a level where this is very commercially viable now. And there's lots of game developers really jumping on board, especially on the Oculus device. So the execution, it's not just myself and Seamus in the organization. We've grown quite large actually over the past 12 months. So we've grown our team from about 30 staff to about 55, maybe 56 staff at the moment. And we've a very, very strong technical team. Some of these people here, so Dave McDermott, who you can see here, head of studio. He used to work quite a lot for Nintendo in Japan, very senior animator. He worked on some really premium games like Star Fox and some of the Mario material as well. He's head of our content studio, really, really strong guy. Mike Armstrong, who you can see here, he was one of the first developers to create a social VR experience in VR back many, many years ago. It was a virtual cinema. He's actually our lead architect on the platform. And then you can see Eileen here, who's our technical project manager, and she works from some big organizations along with Jonathan there as well. They work with very big tech organizations such as Bluefin and Red Hat here in Waterford. So they really know from an operational point of view of how to get the best from your developers. And even though we've hired so many people and we've grown so large, actually, especially in the past 6 months, again, look, we're a very, very strong technical team. But you can see here we have some hires. Most of our outstanding hires actually are in sales, business development, and marketing. So with a lot of our customer base in the US and in Asia, we will be opening up small satellite offices. They won't actually be physical offices. They'll be virtual offices, but we'll have people in those locations dedicated to customers over in that area where they can pick up and do like sales calls, support calls for any events that are happening. Because even though we are a European company, a lot of the requests that are coming in are actually coming in the middle of the night for us. So we really need to build up that side of the organization, and also as well the sales and marketing of the business as well. So it's great having a very, very mature platform that works everywhere, but if people can't find you, they're not going to buy into you. And we are seeing a lot of competition coming up, especially in the United States. Their technology is certainly maybe a couple of years behind of where we currently are, but they probably have a little bit more notice in that area. So that's one area that we're certainly going to focus on is the US market. And then HTC this year are really going to push Engage in the Asia market, and then in Europe then as well. They have some really strong ties with some strong companies in the European arena. So just kind of in summary, really, of why we feel that the Engage platform is a good platform to invest in, and why it's worth your time. So last year we had a record increase in revenue, up by 550% just on the Engage platform, and our user base grew by 700%, and we had 60 commercial deals signed, most of it in the second half of last year. So it's shown really, really strong demand and strong interest in the Engage platform. Also, with our collaboration with HTC, HTC coming on board as an investor in the company and a 20% stakeholder in the company, they're really going to use their might, their marketing, and their sales people to really push out Engage services in China. And China is actually the fastest growing immersive market in the world, and we're expecting to see big things happening again in the second half of this year. Engage has some unique abilities. So we have our recorded projected presence, our spatial recording system. It's something that none of the other platforms currently have, and we also have the ability to host large scale events. So some of the platforms can host smaller events, but we can hold many people, many millions of people actually inside Engage if need be. We are targeting 10 million Engage revenue, 500 active enterprise customers, and over 100,000 monthly users between 2023 and 2025. So that's coming up very, very soon. And our annual revenue, CAGR from Engage, to be in excess of 100% to reach the 10 million target. We have a very large addressable market across 3 core sectors. So we have our virtual office, virtual campus, and virtual collaboration. And we estimate that our addressable market is somewhere between 10 billion and 25 billion. We also have a very dedicated and experienced management team, very technically minded, very technically able, and we're very, very ambitious. So today, with online communication, when people say, I'll talk to you online, what they'll say is, I'll Skype you later, or I'll meet you in Microsoft Teams. We want the conversation to change very, very soon to, I'm going to engage with you later. Let's meet in VR. I'm going to engage with you. That's where we see the Engage platform as the next generation communications platform, as the next Skype, as the next Microsoft Teams. That's really what we're aiming at, and they're the people that we're looking at as our main competitors. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. We will be sharing this presentation later on, but myself and Seamus now are going to take off our headsets, and we're actually going to log into the conference and the talk, and we're going to answer any of your questions. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
David, Seamus, thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated in the top right-hand corner of your screen. Just while the company take a few moments to review those investor questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard on the Investor Meet Company platform. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company. Immediately after the presentation is ended, you will be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order the company can better understand your views and expectations. David, Seamus, thank you for that presentation. Investors have submitted a number of questions during the event itself. I'd love to hand back to you just to respond to those where appropriate to do so. Seamus, perhaps if I could ask you to read out the question and respond and say who it's from. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the first question I have here is from Shane. He's just looking just some color around the medium-term outlook, more specifically the average contract value in excess of 20,000 euros. Can you talk to us through the pricing evolution and how this target will be achieved? How do we get to there? And are you receiving any pushback from corporates on pricing? And how are deals negotiated? Is it annual or semi-annual? I can take that. So at the moment, our average contract value at the back end of 2020 was 14,000 euros per contract. That's for an active customer. We consider anyone an active customer if they're not a trial customer. So basically a value in excess of 3,000 euros per customer. So the way we view the evolution of this, we see clients coming on for smaller licenses up front, which has been what we've experienced to date. And then as they get more and more comfortable with the platform, they take on more and more licenses to cover more of their organization. One example of that is we had a large corporation come in for an agreement for a small number of licenses in around the €10,000 mark, and they've come back 3 times since, and now their total contract value with us is almost touching €100,000, which is the expected route that we feel will take with large corporates. They want to get a feel for it, they want to make sure it's fit for purpose, and then they'll scale up accordingly. In terms of pricing, we haven't received any pushback from our corporates to date on the pricing that we've offered. There's been no issues around that, and our contracts are annual, automatically renewing, and payment is made up front on all of our contracts. If we do some professional services work as part of that, where we might create a custom location or a bit of custom content for a licensee, then that's paid on a milestone basis with a large upfront payment to make sure we're covered. Then just again from Shane, any ideas towards commercial angle of spatial recording functionality within events, post-event recordings of industry conferences, or maybe even musical performances? I'll leave that one to you, Dave.
Yeah, so with spatial recordings, they are very unique, and what we can do, and you've seen it in the example where we can record the event itself, and not only do you record the presenters, but you can record everybody who attends the event as well, and that can be replayed over and over again. Music events are certainly very interesting to us, where if you're going to a musical event in virtual reality, we can again spatially record that, and then that can be sold pretty similar to an album. So yes, you are buying a ticket to attend a virtual event, but as part of your ticket, you're actually going to get the spatial recording, so you can replay that over again. So it's like getting a digital album, but you're actually inside the digital album. The spatial recording system has actually been used quite extensively in education. So we have providers on the platform who create educational content using the spatial recording and then sell that content on as well. So there's a huge amount of possibilities on the platform. First and foremost, what we're concentrating on right now is the communication aspect of Engage as an alternative to Microsoft Teams and video-based platforms. We see, like, if you're on a call with maybe 8 people or less, video communication is perfect. But if you have a call with maybe 10, 15, 20 people and you need to collaborate on, Engage is the right tool for that. So it's going to complement a lot of these bigger organizations who have remote teams.
Thanks, Dave. Another one here that I think is going to be more you than me. Allspace announced Microsoft is using the platform to host its annual Ignite conference next week, which is typically attended by 20 to 30,000 people. Could you talk us through the key advantages Engage would offer over platforms like Virbela and Allspace that are now beginning to target virtual events? And also, how important do you feel that photorealistic avatars are to corporate clients?
Yeah, well, Microsoft actually owned Allspace, so it's no surprise that they're going to host their big event in Allspace. And Virbela have been around for about 10 years, and they're mostly on desktop displays. I think people really lose what immersive technology is all about. So quite often when you attend these events in those areas, kind of similar to what we done here, actually, they're doing just PowerPoint presentations. But when you host a full virtual event, people don't want to see cartoon representations. They want to see their real face, especially for professional organizations. You want to see the real face of the CEO or the real face of the salesperson you're speaking to. It's the network opportunities that are available inside as well. You don't just want to go inside and watch PowerPoint after PowerPoint. You want something that's really super engaging. When we had the HTC event, as an example, the CEO came up through the ground, and then we had jets fly over, and we had like fireworks go off, and we had all these special animations. And with the example that I showed, you seen coronavirus coming out of the screen, and then everybody were in hazmat suits. This is stuff that you can't do on video platforms or even in real life. And this is the use cases for using virtual platforms for events. But the most important thing is the communication aspect, where you can have that private conversation with somebody and spark up a conversation, and then hopefully that will lead on to more business. But yeah, I do feel that the cartoon nature of Allspace and also Virbela really doesn't lend itself very well to the professional look that a lot of these larger corporations that we're dealing with now want to achieve, especially if they're using it for sales meetings where clients, it's their first time meeting a company. They want it to look as professional as possible.
Cheers, Dave. Graham has asked here, will significant wins in China plus other regions require an RNS if they're introduced via channel partners such as HTC?
Yeah, I'll answer that one. We would expect to announce any significant wins, be it in China or anywhere else that HTC or other channel partners sell, if they're of notable size. Obviously, it would be on a deal by deal basis as to whether we could announce who the specific customer was, but we'd see no issue with that. It wasn't significant, but we have mentioned already that we did an event with Yahoo, which was via HTC, and in the future we'll continue to do that where appropriate.
There is, just to add to that as well, there is at sometimes where we sign NDAs with large corporations and we just can't announce what we're doing with that corporation. But if they get a substantial license, then yes, we will be releasing that news to the markets.
Graham also asked, in your last presentation, you stated you were busy mopping up all the major events for 2021. Did this happen? We are currently in advanced talks for a number of events of varying sizes, which we hope to land in 2021. And as bigger ones are announced, we'll inform the market at that stage.
Watch this space is what I would say.
So Michael has said, great to see the platform in action and working seamlessly. Could I check what the main feedback from your existing clients has been and where they'd like you to continue to develop the platform? I'll leave that with you, Dave.
Yeah, so it really depends on the client. So the three different sectors that we have three different needs. So education and corporate are pretty similar. Education clients, really what they want to see are more and more tools for creating and sharing content. That's really what their use case is for it. So they want students to be able to create their own little mini experiences, as an example, and then share it with the class. So that's really on the education side. On the corporate side, it's making it available on more and more platforms, which is something we addressed last year. So we released Engage on mobile phones and tablets and iPhones, and making it easier for people to attend virtual events. And with the corporations as well, with their training and development teams, they sometimes require more and more training from us. They want like better tutorials really on the platform, because we've been developing the platform so rapidly. Our tutorial system can actually get out of date quite quickly as we introduce new features or update the UI. And on the event space, quite often the early events that we had on the platform, a lot of the corporations were actually just trying to replicate what they would do in a real event, and we were getting quite jaded of that. So we had some events where, say, X Prize as an example, they had an event inside an arcade cabinet. It was a Space Invaders cabinet, and if you look up, you could see the Space Invaders sprites, and if you look straight ahead, you could see somebody playing on the arcade game. They're more interesting. So what we say to people is really, really open your minds and really be very imaginative, because we don't want to replicate what you can do in the real world. We want to make events and collaboration a lot better, and we use it ourselves actually on a daily basis, which has made the platform better. So we haven't been in our physical office since March, but we hold all our daily stand-ups inside Engage, our Kanban board meetings inside Engage as well, and it keeps the whole organization very, very well connected. And even post COVID-19, there's going to be a real blended work environment where I know everybody is mad keen to get back into the office just for that social aspect. But after a while, they're going to say, do you know what? I actually did enjoy working from home, spending more time with the family, not traveling like 2 hours in a car to get into work. So I think there will be a huge blended work environment in the future where you'll probably spend half your time in the office and half your time out of the office. And for that time when you're out of the office and you need to connect, Engage is the perfect way to do that.
Thanks, Dave. Another question from Michael was just, do we have any EBITDA margin guidance for the medium term? We didn't put it into our medium term outlook, but our expectation from what's out there with analysts at the moment is that we will turn EBITDA positive at some stage in the next 18 to 24 months. And obviously EBITDA will grow significantly then as we move into the larger revenue marks that we have outlined in our medium-term outlook. Malar has asked, what kind of ongoing investment is required in R&D to keep that 2-year advantage over the emerging competitors? So we have, sorry, Dave, if you want to take that, you can.
No, go ahead, James, go ahead.
So we have a very strong technical team that we've expanded significantly over the last 12 months, who are constantly working on new developments for the Engage platform to keep it above and beyond what our competitors are doing. That development will continue to be ongoing, and we plan to release new updates to Engage periodically. Dave, you might want to add on to that. That was just my view on it.
Yeah, we do have a head start at the moment. Like really, we have a path to profitability right now. So like we're getting more and more revenue coming in each month, more and more customers coming in each month. But we're very ambitious. Like we don't want to just be profitable. We want to really scale the business in a big way. So really where the business needs are right now are more business developers, more after sales support people, and really actually support people as well to support our channel partners. So we have like obviously HTC we talked about, but we have other channel partners coming on stream in the United States, and marketing as well. The Where we are at the moment is with last year, especially in the last 4 or 5 months of last year, we didn't have a lot of announcements out in the market. We were actually focused on the business where we were closing contracts, getting more and more people on the platform, getting the next updates out. That's going to change very, very soon. So we have a new marketing team in place. You're going to see more and more announcements from us as well. And as the say the share price grows, then look, it is something that we will look at in the future. Where if we're going to raise, we're going to be raising for scaling the business, not for continued operation of the business.
Cheers, Dave. Another question here is, what benefits does teaching or learning in VR, AR have over traditional environments? I'm asking specifically to gauge the potential for growth in your education side of the platform.
Yeah, so there's been quite a few studies done over the past few years, and some tests and theses out there as well. So if you look them up online, some of them actually show an 80% better retention rate using virtual reality than traditional methods of education. Now, it's not for all education, it's for certain aspects of education. So history, education where you have to do physical stuff or anything role playing. Those are the types of education that really, really benefit. Medical training is a huge example of this, where when people are provided medical training in a virtual environment and they can repeat these simulations over and over and over again, they get a lot more practical practice before they actually go and then practice on maybe like a cadaver, where they might only get to do that once or twice. But there's benefits across the board, and even with the engagement of workers and employees in onboarding to a new company, by providing them onboarding through VR, they actually get more of a feel for the company, especially now that they're all working remotely, instead of just getting a couple of blank phone calls from people and trying to engage or figure out what the kind of how the company structure is. If they meet these people in a virtual setting, they feel more included in the business.
Thanks, Dave. There's a couple of overlapping questions, so I'll skip over them. There's one here from Whale. In your trading update, you mentioned you're focused on getting new strategic partners. Is that expected to support the covering of the monthly cash burn, or how do you plan covering the cash burn over the next 12 months? So I can take that. So as we stated in the presentation, our cash balance at the end of 2020 was just over 2 million. In the first 2 months of the year, our cash burn has been less than 150,000 per month, based on the fact that our revenue is growing significantly. And we do continue to expect to see our cash burn to decline during 2021. So without any strategic partner investment or anything like that, we do have sufficient funds to cover more than 12-month period. And we are always looking at various strategic partners coming on board, but it's not an expectation that that's how we're going to support ourselves. We are in a position where we are self-supporting at the moment. Then another question that literally just popped in, sort of a follow-on to that from Sam. In any future equity increase, will you include existing private investors through an open offer? I see no reason why we wouldn't do that, but we haven't made any decision as in terms of a future equity raise at this moment. But as and when the time is right, we will advise the market accordingly on that. That's a lot. Some of the other questions are overlapping. There's one technical question in there that I'll have to get our tech team to answer, so I'll respond to that after the presentation is over, because I just don't have the answer to that myself, or David wouldn't either. But other than that, I think we've covered off all the questions. So there was a couple of overlapping ones. So I think we're thereabouts.
Sorry, go on, David.
I was just going to say, I'd probably close out with so being an entrepreneur, being a company, like you always want to be ahead of the game, but you don't want to be too far ahead of the game. So you want to be maybe 2 or 3 years ahead of the game at most. I think when we started out, we were probably 5 years ahead of the game, but we had that other side of the business or showcase experiences that were doing really, really well for us. I do think the market is coming to us now. COVID has certainly been a catalyst, but the headsets becoming cheaper and the headset quality actually becoming a lot better as well. And with COVID pushing everybody online, the market has certainly come to us. And I do feel we're probably 1.5 to 2 years ahead of the game right now, which is exactly where we want to be. There was a lot of promise, when we went on to the markets 2-3 years ago. VR actually had a lot of hype behind it as well. And there were some other VR companies as well that were probably well ahead of the game. Whereas I feel now, looking back at it, we probably went on the market maybe a little bit early, but things are certainly changing and turning around. Like revenues are up, we're getting records, user numbers signing up month on month, whereas before it used to be quite lumpy. We've doubled our staff in the last 9 months. We've gone from 2 business developers who closed deals in excess of 1.8 million last year, just with 2 business developers. We now have 8 business developers working with us. So everything is going along in the right direction. So I think we've an exciting few quarters ahead of us.
That's fantastic. David Seamus, thank you very much for addressing those questions. Of course, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish those responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. David, thank you very much for that wrap up there, and thank you both for updating investors today. Can I please ask investors not to close the session, as you will now be automatically redirected for the opportunity to provide your feedback. If you access this meeting from our website, the feedback page will appear. But if you've accessed the meeting via the link sent you in the email, you'll simply just be asked to log back in and submit your feedback. It takes just a couple of seconds. It'd be greatly appreciated by the company. On behalf of VR Education Holdings PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That concludes today's session. Thank you, Ian.
Thank you.
Bye now.